So for those interested, I wanted to do a little bit more insight into the creation of Nate's backstory chapter, specifically the first 2 pages. And this is another character of my Swordplay illustrated novel. And I'm going to be going through the iPad digital drawing progression, along with kind of giving you guys more insight as to why I'm adding certain elements. So I'm using Red's backstory as kind of a template for sizing, but it's literally just there for that. And as I get going here, I wanted there to be 2 distinct pages that go into Nate's childhood specifically. And ignore the drawing that I did on the right side. Clearly, I was wandering, my mind was wandering at that point. Uh, but the first page, I wanted to clearly show that he feels trapped. And it kind of goes along with the illustration that I did for him, where he is behind the window of a giant, majestic theater. It's a stage show building that's been abandoned. And I like the idea that he always feels like he's on the inside looking out at what to him is freedom. So to reincorporate that here and maybe just reinforce the whole idea that he is kind of locking himself behind bars. In the first illustration, it's like he put himself there, but then you see as a child, he was forced to be there. So it kind of transitions at some point from him being forced to be behind bars to putting himself there himself. And I like the idea of the reflection on the window showing the clouds and outside, and then him playing with a boat and his parents arguing, just like a hint of it, a subtle little tickle in the background. And you can kind of piece together that it might not be the best living situation. And then for the right side, I wanted to show him outside drawing on a wall with a piece of chalk or something. And this weirdo like comes up to him and essentially becomes his only friend. But the very beginning of their friendship was very odd. And I wanted to illustrate that it was not like this smooth transition because Nate already feels so isolated that he's not really the most open to wanting to share his life with another person. And I wanted this very naive kid that seems to be just full of joy and life, kind of contrast to the way Nate is, to approach him and try to befriend him. But it's very bizarre. It's a bizarre experience and encounter. So I wanted to reflect that. But I had a lot of troubles with this page. I didn't know if I wanted it to be sequential or if I wanted it to be just a single image as like an illustration. I ended up going with more of a sequential route, mostly because I want to start challenging myself to do more of sequential art. I feel like it is definitely a weak point for me. And the only way that I can get better at it is obviously to do it. And this was a good challenge for me. And I was trying to show the 3 steps of Nate drawing on the wall, Nate noticing something, and then Nate like lifting his mask and just being like disgusted. Where on the other side, you have this boy who's seemingly in his own world and having a blast. And he's like doing this weird dance with eyes painted on his hand and a mouth painted on his stomach. And you can just tell he's really enjoying childhood and what that has to offer, in contrast to Nate, who not only is kind of down on life, but I represent it a bit with the band-aids, kind of showing that he's been through pain. And I don't have any on Harry specifically. So as I get into the actual final drawing here, there were some other things that I also experimented with. So in the first page, I layered the actual text like bricks, kind of to complement the brick texture that's surrounding it. And I'm obviously being very experimental because I'm new to doing a book like this. And I'm just kind of having fun along the way. And I just kind of figured, why not experiment? And if there are things that will work, that's great. If there are things that don't work, well, at least I tried, and at least I'm trying to be experimental along the way. And that's kind of the mindset I'm having throughout Swordplay. But in the first page, I really did reflect not only the sky in the reflection, but I also showed birds to kind of reincorporate the idea that even though he's behind bars, he can see what freedom looks like. And that metaphor is definitely played heavily throughout the book for this character who can kind of see what is out there and what life can be, but is trapped by something inhibiting him. And in his childhood, it's obviously his own home life. And then later on, it's his struggles. And there's things that I want to get into, but I don't want to reveal them here. But the shadowy parents were another little touch that I definitely wanted to be apparent, but not super obvious. So I hope that I pulled that off there. And then with the second panel, I included a couple Easter eggs, and the only one I'll reveal is the scissors that Nate has in his pocket belong to my art friend Hemlock, and he is a great young artist, and he did these sketches of scissors, and I thought they were just really strong looking, cool scissors. So I asked him if I could have my character Nate borrow them for this page, and he was totally about it. So props to him there. And then with Harry, I wanted to kind of show the paint and be a little bit more another area where I'm being experimental, where one hand being a bit darker and then the paint being lighter, and then having that be contrasted on the other side of the hand. But the face of young Harry, the friend, was definitely a challenge for me. I had to go through a bunch of different passes. Where the one on Nate, which I thought would have been harder because he's having like a disgusted look, and I definitely don't do emotions a lot. It was actually very easy with Nate. It was like the first try. But then on Harry, it definitely was like the seventh or eighth, and I'm still looking at it like, I might go in and retouch it because I'm such a psycho with that kind of stuff. But I was actually kind of proud of how my first sequential page turned out. Looking at it, I definitely know what I could do in the future to improve upon it. And I know that along the way with swordplay, I can always look back in hindsight, be like, oh, I wish I would have done it this way. But I'm just at least proud of myself for at least doing it because I feel like I've talked about swordplay for so long. So these are the first 2 pages of Nate's backstory chapter. I might continue doing this little narration for the next pages from henceforth, just because I know there's a lot of you that like hearing these little insights. So expect more of these, and thanks for watching.